Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel where we dive deep into history's most fascinating mysteries. Today, we're journeying back in time to ancient Persia, to a place near modern-day Baghdad, to uncover the secrets of an artifact that could rewrite what we thought we knew about the ancient world. I'm talking about the Baghdad Battery. What is it? A simple clay pot? Or proof of electricity thousands of years before its official discovery? Let's find out together. In 1938, German archaeologist Wilhelm Knigge stumbled upon a peculiar object while working at the National Museum of Rock. It was a small, unassuming terracotta jar, only about 5.5 inches tall, but what was inside it was truly baffling. Sealed with an asphalt stopper was a copper cylinder, and inside that cylinder was an iron rod, held in place by another asphalt plug. The entire setup looked suspiciously like a modern galvanic cell, or what we would call a battery. The jar was dated to the Parthian or Sassanid period, placing it somewhere between 250 BC and 650 AD. This was a shocker. Alessandro Volta is credited with inventing the battery in the year 1800. If this artifact was truly a battery, it would predate Volta's invention by nearly 2 millennia. The discovery immediately ignited a fiery debate that continues to this day. On one side, you have the believers, the ones who argue this was absolutely an ancient source of electricity, and they've got some compelling evidence. When replicas of the Baghdad Battery are filled with an acidic substance like vinegar or grape juice, they can generate a small electrical voltage, typically between 0.5 and 1.5 volts. It's not much. Certainly not enough to power a light bulb, but it's definitely electricity. Imagine connecting several of these jars together in a series. The voltage would add up, creating a more significant power source. So, if it was a battery, what were the ancient Persians using it for? One of the most popular theories is electroplating. This is the process of coating one metal with a thin layer of another, like plating a copper object with a fine layer of gold or silver. It's a technique we use all the time today for jewelry and electronics. Proponents of this theory point to ancient artifacts that appear to be electroplated. They argue that these batteries provided the low, steady current needed for this delicate work. Imagine ancient artisans using this hidden technology to create stunning, gilded treasures that looked like solid gold but were far more affordable. It would have been a closely guarded trade secret, a form of ancient magic to the uninitiated. Another intriguing idea is that the batteries were used for medical purposes, specifically a form of electroacupuncture. Ancient texts sometimes describe using electric fish, like the electric eel or torpedo ray, to numb pain. Perhaps these man-made batteries were a more reliable and portable alternative. A patient suffering from arthritis or a headache might have been treated with small, targeted electrical shocks to relieve their symptoms. It sounds a bit strange to us, but it's a form of therapy that's actually being explored again in modern medicine. Could our ancestors have been onto something thousands of years ago? Then there's a more ritualistic or theatrical explanation. The batteries might have been used to create a sense of awe and mystery in religious ceremonies. Picture a priest in a darkened temple, touching a metal statue. Suddenly, the worshipper who touches it at the same time feels a strange tingle, a small shock. They would believe they had just felt the power of the gods themselves. This divine experience, secretly powered by a series of hidden clay jars, would have been an incredibly powerful tool for priests and rulers to command authority and reverence. It's a clever use of science disguised as magic. But of course, for every compelling theory, there's a healthy dose of skepticism. Many archaeologists and historians are not convinced. They argue that there's simply not enough evidence to support the battery theory. First, let's talk about the context. These jars were found alongside thousands of other, more mundane artifacts. There were no wires, no connectors, no electroplated objects found directly with them that would definitively link them to an electrical purpose. If this was a widespread technology, wouldn't we find more components of the complete electrical kits? Where are the ancient jumper cables? Skeptics also point out that the battery design is very efficient. The asphalt stopper, for example, is an excellent insulator, but it also seals the jar completely. A real functioning battery needs to allow for gases to escape. A sealed Baghdad battery would quickly build up pressure and stop working, or even break. Plus, the amount of voltage it produces is tiny. While electroplating with it is theoretically possible, it would be an incredibly slow and difficult process. There are simpler, non-electrical methods like using a mercury-gold amalgam that ancient craftsmen were known to use, which produce a much better result. So, what's the alternative? The most common counter-theory is that these jars were simply for storing sacred scrolls. The idea is that scrolls made of papyrus or parchment would be rolled up and placed inside the copper cylinder for protection. The iron rod might have been part of the roller, and the asphalt seals would protect the delicate documents from moisture and decay. Over the centuries, the scrolls would have completely disintegrated, leaving behind only the container. This theory is supported by the fact that similar, though not identical, containers used for scroll storage have been found in other archaeological sites in the region. It's a much less exciting explanation, but from a purely practical standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. The mysterious battery might just be a fancy, ancient library tube. Another point critics make about Wilhelm Knigge himself. While he was the one who brought the artifact to the world's attention, his initial interpretations have been questioned. Some suggest he may have misidentified the layers of sediment the jar was found in, potentially making it seem older than it was. And remember, the idea of an ancient battery is incredibly appealing. It taps into our fascination with lost technologies and the idea that ancient civilizations were more advanced than we give them credit for. It's easy for a sensational theory to catch on, even if the evidence is thin. Think about it. A story about a sacred scroll holder, interesting to a historian, but a story about an ancient battery, interesting to everyone. This brings us to the fascinating world of parts, out-of-place artifacts. These are objects found in archaeological contexts that seem technologically advanced for their time. The Baghdad Battery is perhaps the most famous OOPART, alongside things like the Antikythera mechanism, an ancient Greek analog computer. These objects challenge our linear view of history. We tend to think of technological progress as a straight line, steadily advancing from primitive to modern. But what if it wasn't? What if history is full of peaks and valleys, with pockets of incredible innovation that were lost and then had to be rediscovered centuries or even millennia later? Whether the Baghdad Battery was a power source, a scroll holder, or something else entirely, its existence forces us to ask important questions. It reminds us that the past is not as simple as we think. The people of ancient Persia were not primitive. They were intelligent, resourceful, and innovative. They were experimenting with materials, exploring the world around them, and pushing the boundaries of their knowledge. The jar itself, regardless of its function, is a testament to their craftsmanship and ingenuity. So, what's the final verdict? The honest answer is, we still don't know for sure. There is no smoking gun. There's no ancient manual titled How to Build Your Parthian Battery. The evidence is circumstantial on both sides. The believers have working replicas that produce electricity. The skeptics have the lack of wires and more plausible, mundane explanations. It remains one of history's most delicious and enduring enigmas. For me, the real magic of the Baghdad Battery isn't whether it could power something, it's that it powers our imagination. It encourages us to look at the past with fresh eyes, to challenge our assumptions, and to recognize the profound mystery that still shrouds our own history. It's a humble clay pot that contains a universe of possibilities. What do you think? Was it a source of ancient power, a simple storage vessel, or something we haven't even considered? Let me know your theories down in the comments below. I'd love to read what you think. Thanks so much for joining me on this historical investigation. If you enjoyed unraveling this mystery, Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the puzzles of our past. Until next time, stay curious.